Hi there. Welcome to this hopefully slightly short video. I'm not sure how short it'll actually be because I do ramble a lot. But today what I want to talk to you guys about is master studies. Um, so if you haven't been on this channel before, my name is Daniel. I am a professional concept artist. I've worked in the film industry for quite a few years now. And I've got some pretty nice projects under my belt. I've got, if you want to see the kind of work I make, go check out my Instagram or ArtStation. The thing that I think a lot of people don't know, because the majority of my following has come in the last really year or 2 years, like most of the people who follow me are from the last few years of my career. I think what a lot of people don't know is that I was a student fairly recently. I've actually only been in the industry for about 4 to 5 years now, but closer to 5 now, I would say. But I haven't been in the industry that long, and I still think about an awful lot of the stuff that I thought about as a student. It's still super fresh in my mind, and I still teach students and educate people. And so, one of the things that I have loads of conversations with people about all the time is studies and doing master studies. So, today, what I want to talk about is kind of like why people do them and really how to do it better. Because I think there is an awful lot of kind of like, I wouldn't say like miseducation, but maybe just like not quite so well thought out advice on how to do them. I think there are structurally better ways to approach doing a master study and thinking about how and why you are doing them to improve the efficiency of your learning. And I'm also going to show you some examples of how I do these now as a professional because I approach them very differently now. Because I mean, not that there's nothing to learn from doing master studies anymore, but I kind of do it in a slightly different way. And I'm also going to show you different exercises that you can do, I think, to get more out of doing master studies yourself. So just to start off here, these are some of my kind of like old master studies. These are probably from like 2019 to 2020. So this is like just before I got into the industry. And you can see there's a bunch of stuff here. We've got things by John Park. We've got stuff by Soruya. We've got things from films. Like, I think that's probably from Snowpiercer, judging from, I think that's meant to be Chris Evans. We've got stuff from Ahmed El-Dori and loads of other great painters. I think that's from Mission Impossible, that shot. But, I've done an awful lot of these. In fact, I think nearly every online class I've ever done, the first kind of like thing the teacher ever asked me to do was like, hey, go and do a study of a film frame or whatever. It's like the most common kind of like homework you get. And I think there is a massive amount of value in doing these kinds of images. You are able to really get into the head of some of your favorite artists. You are able to understand why they're doing stuff. And you're going to learn about a multitude of things and approaches if you really actively engage with this kind of task. Um, However, again, I don't think people do these quite correctly. So I've set up a little demo here. I'm not actually going to paint this is a master study. I just want to talk about it. But we've got a John Singer Sargent painting here, and John Singer Sargent is one of I feel like the most frequently used master study artists in concept art. Like, I have seen thousands of master studies of John Singer Sargent paintings, and rightfully so. They are beautiful, beautiful pieces of work. I've even been lucky enough to see some of them in person because some of them are in display in London. And yeah, the level of skill that is shown in these images is like truly exceptional. So they are definitely worth a master study, no matter what kind of like field of concept art you're trying to go into. Now, when we are doing something like this, right? Let me just find my layer. There it is. There are four things that we are trying to theoretically learn. I think these are the four things that most people, whether they realize it or not, are learning from a master study. You are learning the composition. So by composition, I mean the underlying drawing, okay? The spacing of objects, the way that the face is drawn, the hands are drawn. You're kind of trying to like X-ray vision through this painting to understand how John Singer Sargent thought about what came before his painting phase, essentially. Then the next thing you're thinking about is values. Okay, so you're trying to learn to have good value control in your paintings. I could do a whole episode on this in the future, but I think there are plenty of good videos by people like Marco Bucci and Ahmed Eldori and loads of other Nathan Fowkes. I think there's some good videos on this. That values are fundamental to painting. I have heard a lot of people say throughout my life that they are the most important part of painting, and I don't necessarily disagree with that, to be honest. Um, So having good values is super important. You want to learn, hey, how did John Singer Sargent direct the eye through the painting? How did he create simultaneous contrast? How did he push your eye away from certain areas towards certain areas? How did he retain interest in things, whilst also like showing the different amounts of materials and things, all this stuff, that all comes into values. Then the next thing we have is colors, right? So what are the hues that are being chosen here? Is it hot or cold? Is it warm? Is it, like a vibrant painting? Do we have a limited palette? Are we using a triadic palette? All of these things. And then the fourth thing, which I think is very underrepresented in a lot of people's studies, is really just brush efficiency. I feel like people do not talk about brush efficiency enough. So I've split up my little thing over here into 4 pieces. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. And I'm going to talk about composition, values, colors, and brush efficiency, and how to actually actively learn about those things as you do them. So you might be thinking to yourself, right, as we go here, that I've done a very good drawing. I'm going to explain to you in a moment why I have not done a very good drawing. But let's just theoretically say you want to learn about the composition. Sorry, moving my camera around too much. Let's say you just want to learn about the composition. Well, the most important thing to do is just to do line drawings if you want to learn about that. So if I'm going to like draw this woman over here, you also will get a lot of advice from people like, hey, don't draw it at the same scale. So often people will say, hey, you should draw it bigger than it is on your screen so that you don't have like a direct size comparison. I think that's very true. But I'm going to do it this way anyway because I'm lazy. I'm also going to do a very bad job, so please forgive me. Already so off. I'm drawing something really terrible. There we go. Whatever. Now you can see, I'm really not afraid to show this. I, as a professional artist, still have so much more to learn. I wish I could nail this out in like 3 brush strokes and be like, yeah, look how good I am. But the reality is, I'm not that good. In fact, I'm sure there are loads of artists out there who could absolutely hammer this out and just be like, yeah, look how amazing I am. I'm not that guy. I think there are certain things I'm good at. Accurately drawing from a photograph is not something that I have really had the chance to practice in years. So there we go. We've got like a very angry looking fella there. Not very good, right? But if I wanted to, what I would then do is I would say, hey, this isn't very good. And I would maybe go across here. I would draw some lines across. I'd be like, okay, well, actually the eye is in the right place, but the bottom of the nose is maybe not out far enough, I'm seeing. Maybe it needs to go out here more. Top of her head is kind of, actually these lines are weirdly aligned, but maybe this needs to come in more, this needs to go out more, whatever. And then I would remove this and I would try and draw it again, right? So I'd go in and I go, okay, whatever. Again, absolutely horrendous, but I'm not. Please believe me, I'm not trying. I'm not trying. Oh god, bad. My art teachers would hate me right now. Bang, bang. There we go. Yeah, whatever. There we go. So I would do a nice drawing like this, and it would hopefully end up looking something like this drawing over here. Okay. You'll have to believe me. Maybe I'll have to upload one to Instagram to prove that I'm actually capable of drawing, but I am hoping the thousands of images I've done over the years are proof enough of that. So this is what I would say is like the number one thing, right? Is the compositional drawing. And if you're going to do this, what you have to understand is, and this is what I really want to get across, is like all that matters is doing the drawing bit. You are not going to improve your understanding of composition by going in and painting all of this or trying to get the correct values in place. Does that help you with your composition? No, it helps you with your values, colors, brush efficiency. So if you want to practice composition, just do the drawing stuff. Just do the thing that helped the artist figure out their composition, right? Because John Singer Sargent already had this sketched out before he started it. So that's very important. If you're going to begin by doing, a composition, then just do it with line drawing. Now, if you want to go on to values down here, how do you approach that? Well, what a lot of people do is they do the full compositional drawing and then they move on to the values. But here's the thing, most students, myself included, cannot do a one-to-one perfect copy of a John Singer Sargent painting. And so the knock-on effect of this is that their values are then being put down onto this space, right? And they will never actually be correct. They might be the general gist of what John Singer Sargent meant, right? But they're not actually going to be correct because they're not going in the right spaces because the underdrawing is wrong. So how do you get to do something like this? Well, it's easy. You just trace. Now, I know that tracing has a little bit of kind of like I don't know, a bit of a stink to it, especially amongst students. But it's all about efficient learning. If you want to learn how to approach your values, why waste your time doing compositional drawing if you are there to just learn about values, to focus, to think about the values alone by themselves? Then doing an underdrawing does not stop you from learning that. In fact, it helps you because now everything that we do inside of this space will be 100% accurate to kind of like what was originally intended. And the only constraint here to me doing it badly is me having a bad understanding of values, right? So just as I very quickly, oops, let's get that on a different layer down below. Just as I very quickly kind of like do again a very bad demo of like what I'm kind of thinking here. The great thing about doing this is that, again, I'm not concerned about anything else going wrong. I can see like right here, hey, that color is wrong and it should be exactly like this because I have a very accurate place to compare it from, you know? So what this enables you to do is to just think about the values. You can go in and do all of this. Lovely. Bang, bang. That's cool. Let's put a little bit of a high point here, a little bit of a high point there, under the chin, whatever. It doesn't really matter. Then the same thing with the colors. How do you approach that? Well, we don't want to color pick, right? Because we don't want to, you know, just go over here and be like, oh, wow, there's a brown there. That's kind of pointless. You need to find that color on your color wheel or whatever kind of system you're using and try to accurately put it in place. Now, this also obviously requires you to have some understanding of values, but I think, again, this is a very separate thing to study almost, because you are, again, you know exactly what to focus on. We're just trying to match this color here to, oh sorry, I guess we're looking at this lower area. I just want to find this exact color down here and match it. So if I go in here, I can say, okay, that kind of like dark color is much too brown. I can see that there's a lot more turquoise in there. So I could even go into my little color thingies here. Okay, that's now too blue. I'll put a little bit more green in. That's now too light. Pull it back down to darkness. And maybe this is kind of like getting a little bit closer. It's still probably not green enough. It's still not dark enough. But we're starting to get there. And that's the point. It's like I can very actively just now think about exactly what this color should be and exactly how to find that color and exactly why John Singer Sargent was using that color in that specific area. Yeah. So again, it's just about efficiency. We're not like, I think one thing that a lot of people think is like tracing and, you know, taking shortcuts is cheating. If you are tracing like somebody else's painting and calling it your own painting, then yeah, of course, that's pretty bad form, right? Because you're claiming somebody else's artwork as your own. But if you're tracing to learn, then it's a totally different thing. I do not, you know, I've done, like I said, hundreds of, probably thousands of studies over the years. I have never said, hey, this is my art, you know. No, it's somebody else's art. I'm just there kind of like learning and trying to get something out of their art. And I think that's the thing, right? You have to understand why you are doing something and what the purpose is. So again, very bad, but that's kind of the gist of it, right? You go in, you do, so we've got, again, composition, we do the values, then we do the colors, and then you can do a brush efficiency test. So like, how do you do brush efficiency? Well, brush efficiency, does it matter if I trace the image underneath? Well, no, because this is the drawing, right? It has nothing to do with the application of the paint besides the placement of it. What about the values? Does that affect my brush efficiency? Well, no, this is more of a mechanical skill about putting down the paint strokes. Do the colors affect it? No, same reason. So when you're doing a brush efficiency thing in Photoshop, or even if you're using gouache, get a brush that's as close as you can, and you can go right in and color pick. because it doesn't matter at that point. You're trying to just figure out like, hey, how did he make that stroke? You know, how was that shape created? Play around with your brush settings. You know, a lot of artists change the shape of their brush like this, and you can go in and be like, okay, that's a really nice shape. And then you can go in and try and almost like recreate the same patterns and shapes and find an efficient way to do it as well. I think that's really a big thing that matters, is like going in and making sure that things are accurately done. Again, nothing I'm doing here is accurate because I'm stressed about recording myself. So I'm not going to do a good job. But as with all these things, you know, if I want to get like this soft effect here, like, can change my brush, because again, I mean, I always find it funny that people talk so much about just using the round brush, which is like, it's cool if you want to do that, but I did traditional painting for years and I never used the same brush. You know, I had like brushes I liked, but if I wanted a different shape, I would always change my brush. So going in, color picking, trying to get the right kind of like shape of a stroke down onto the thing, all of this matters. And again, there's no harm at this stage in color picking. It just doesn't matter at all. So all of this is obviously a horrendous demo. I'm so sorry. But all of this is to say that, like, if you want to do these kind of things, think actively about what it is you're trying to learn. If you are trying to learn a specific thing, get as fast as possible to learning that specific thing. Don't waste your time doing other stuff. Of course, it's awesome to do a full master study, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But if your main concern is learning in a very short amount of time or learning very efficiently or quickly, I think analyzing how and why you are doing stuff like this is actually much more productive, because you can then go and do like 25 brush efficiency studies, right, of John Singer Sargent. And you will come away from that having a really kind of like appreciated understanding of how he painted. The same with if you go and do color studies of Sorolla, you will go and you'll come away with a really good understanding of how Sorolla approached color across his paintings. If you go and do master studies of these people, it's so much more difficult because you have to think about all of these things at once. And that, I think, is where the trouble comes in, is like, as especially younger students or really students of any age, if you are learning about a principle, an artistic principle for the first time, it is incredibly tough to keep all of those concepts in your head going one after another, all working together in conjunction. So it's much easier to just focus down on one thing. Now, let's go look at something that looks a little bit nicer. So these are also some studies that I did in 2019 or 2020. I can't quite remember. Apologies for the low resolution, but these are studies that I did where I was really actively trying to learn about materials, okay, which is a very similar thing to, you know, doing a master study. You know, if you do a master study of John Singer Sargent, you're also learning about how he approaches materials, but these are just a little bit more focused. So this is another type of master study, I think. Now with these ones, if I remember correctly, I don't think I was doing the tracing thing at the time with these. So evidence I can draw somewhat. But the way that I was approaching these was, again, breaking it down. Hey, if I really want to ingrain the idea of materials into my brain, how can I best do that? Well, the best way to do that is to do a study of the object and then to try and convert that study into other objects, right? To take the idea of this like metal, I don't know what the hell material this is meant to be, like maybe oxidized copper or something. Didn't do a good job of that one. But, you know, take this material and then say, okay, how can I apply it to a sphere? How can I apply it to a square? Even better, can you apply this to a totally new design? Because I think that's what really, really matters at the end of the day, is like, can you reuse this material? So again, looking at master studies and analyzing, hey, how can I get the most out of this? If you just do a study of this mask of like copper, you know, I think this is, again, maybe this is bronze, maybe it's like old bronze or something. It's like an old bronze statue. You can go and do a study of that, of just this object, and you will come away with an improved understanding of the material, and you might have had a good time doing it as well. But if you do a study of the object and then you do a study of it in a different form and then another different form, specifically, I think the reason spheres and cubes work so well as the things to study is because one of them demonstrates how the kind of like material should work as a smooth object, and the other one shows how it should work as like a flat object. So, the form transitions are going to be totally different between these two things, right? But it's a great exercise because again, it takes the idea of like, hey, I'm going to do a material study, and it brings more depth to it. It entrenches the idea further and further into your brain. Now, in recent years, this is actually the kind of study that I've been doing. I think this is also a really interesting way to look at master studies and to learn and improve. So these, I think, yeah, I don't know. These could totally be. I don't know if these are traced or drawn or whatever. I don't know if anybody even cares, but whatever. So these are studies of photographs, which I then convert into other kind of like images to try and learn something, I suppose, from the studies further. So how can you take a study and just, I guess, go even further than this? Well, you just do a whole new painting based off of that thing. So in this one, we have this like interesting kind of like camera object. I don't know what it's from. I think I did all of these in Procreate as well. So I was probably doing this on the sofa. But I've got this object. Awesome. Let's see if I can reapply the lessons I learned here in terms of the reflectivity and the design principles and the colors into something down here. This is a photo of this one. So, okay, here is an awesome photo of a cliff. Can I take all of the same ideas and kind of like use them up here? It's a similar thing. So I'm not trying to do anything crazy here. What I'm just trying to do is like take the ideas and the things that I have learned from those studies and reapply it. So when I was doing, for example, this one of this kind of like camera thing, I was thinking about like, hey, what's really interesting is like the reflectivity of this material. And you can see I probably spent like, I don't know, 20 minutes on this, so it's not super good. But I'm trying to recreate that material in this totally new object, in this totally new scenario that I haven't done before. If I wanted to continue learning how to do this like better, I would just continue doing this exercise. I would find other objects with a similar amount of reflectivity, and I would then try and reuse them in a new thing that I've just designed. The same with like doing a study like this. Like this is a great way to show like, not only is it a really cool composition, I love these kind of like cliffside comps is what I call them, but it's a great way to learn about how to represent rocks and how to represent grass. So again, I'm trying to take exactly the same learning ideas and reapply them into this, right? So I can be like, okay, well, I want to show rocks here in the same way that I've painted them here, by having like these harsh kind of like shadows underneath and like other light areas. And I want to show grass in the same way too, clumping it up, creating value groupings, using like nice brushes to create like efficient mark making for those pieces of grass, all of this stuff. The long and short of this is, and like I said, this is, hopefully, I don't know how long I've been talking now, but I hope this is a shorter video. The idea here is really just to, I want to encourage you guys to actively think about why you're studying stuff and how to do it. These are things that like, I'm sure other people do, but nobody ever taught me to do it. I think even John Park might have a video about doing stuff like this. And again, if I was doing this stuff today, I mean, these ones are more recent. I think this is probably from like a year ago. If I was doing more of this stuff today, I would constantly be analyzing what I'm doing and just going like, is there a way to make this quicker? Is there a way for me to focus more on the subject at hand? Because the second that you are able to focus down on a very specific thing, it just enormously speeds up your ability to understand that specific thing. So the long and short of this video is, when you are doing studies, try to look at them from the most productive point possible. Try to find ways to allow your brain to focus on the thing that you are trying to learn, and don't get distracted by secondary tasks or things that might not help with the immediate progress of what you are trying to learn or create. I'm sure there are like a million other kind of interesting applications of studies. If you have any kind of like cool methodologies you use to efficiently learn, I would love to hear about them in the comments, because I think, this is kind of how we learn, is by sharing resources, even if it's by doing horrendous drawings like this. I wish I still had my really bad drawing of that. But this is how we learn. So if you have any kind of like methods that you personally use, then please put them in the comments, because I think other people would probably appreciate it. And overall, I hope this video is just being useful in kind of giving you a little bit of an insight into how I have kind of like across my career approached this very common task that people I think, spend so much time doing, but not always doing in the best way. If you've enjoyed the video, do the usual stuff, like and subscribe. Go check out my Instagram and ArtStation if you want to see more of my work. And hopefully down the line, there'll be more stuff like this. So keep an eye out. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all soon. Goodbye.